So welcome to my channel Fiction Start. The series name is What If Naruto Raised by Uzumaki Clan. So let's start the series. Naruto wriggled under the coffee table determinedly. He had to find it because he couldn't finish the picture without it. It hadn't been in the box. So maybe it had fallen out and rolled under the table. It had definitely been there yesterday because he had used it. Naruto, it's time for What Are You Doing? Naruto banged his head on the table and scowled at his dad's feet as they brought him closer. I'm looking for the gray crayon, he pouted. His dad's feet carried him around the coffee table. Have you looked in the box? Naruto rolled his eyes and scooted back out from beneath the table. Yes, he sighed in irritation. It's not there. His dad smiled sympathetically down at him. Well, why don't you just use another color? Like orange, you like orange? Naruto goggled up at him incredulously. I can't use orange. Why not? His dad chuckled. Because. Naruto pointed to his drawing on the table. Kakashi would look stupid with orange hair. His dad blinked in surprise and looked down at the picture. Oh, I see. I didn't realize that was Kakashi. Naruto shook his head in exasperation. His dad could be really stupid sometimes. It was obviously Kakashi. It's past your bedtime anyway. His dad grinned. Put your crayons away, alright? But it isn't finished. You can finish it tomorrow, his dad replied as he walked back out of the room and into the kitchen. To add, no arguments. Naruto huffed and scooped all of his crayons together to stuff them back into the box. The orange one was nothing more than a tiny stub, and the yellow one was broken. But he still hadn't found the gray one, and how was he supposed to draw Kakashi without the gray one? He went very still when he heard the door open. He knew who it was when he heard nothing else after that. Only one person could ever move so silently through the house without Naruto's dad going to investigate. Naruto hurriedly swiped up his drawing and darted frantically around the room looking for somewhere to hide it. It wasn't ready yet. He didn't want him to see. He could hear his father talking cheerfully in the kitchen, and a softer voice replying. Naruto jammed the picture beneath the couch, and then scooped up the box of crayons and launched them across the room until they landed in the corner. He threw himself onto the couch and sprawled across the cushions, eyes closed. The voices in the kitchen went quiet, and Naruto bit his lip to keep himself from smiling. He couldn't hear anything apart from his dad pottering around in the next room and humming to himself. He had no idea where Kakashi was until he felt two strong arms wind around him and lift him easily from the couch. He couldn't keep the smile from his face then, but he pressed his face into Kakashi's chest and hoped that Kakashi couldn't see it. Kakashi probably knew that he was awake, he probably always knew, but he never said anything. Kakashi always played along, and carried him up to bed. His dad would carry him up if he asked, but he didn't want to ask, because he wasn't a baby. He could take himself to bed perfectly well. But it was nice when Kakashi picked him up and swept him silently up the staircase. It made him feel safe and cherished, and he wasn't a girl or anything, but it was nice. Whenever he tried to feign sleep with his dad, he would shake Naruto and tell him to get to bed. Kakashi would pretend with him, and it was Naruto's favorite bedtime routine. Kakashi would carry him to bed and then his dad would come and tuck him in, and then their voices would lull him to sleep from downstairs. It was just a shame that Kakashi didn't come around at bedtime very often. He came around during the day all the time, and sometimes for breakfast too, just hardly ever at bedtime. Naruto snuggled into Kakashi's chest to hide his smile. Kakashi moved in utter silence. He always did. Naruto knew that his dad could be just as soundless when he wanted to, but he preferred to be noisy. Naruto couldn't blame him. He liked being noisy too, but it was cool the way that Kakashi never made any kind of noise unless he meant to. Naruto bit his lip again when he was shifted away from the warmth of Kakashi's chest, and the steady drumming of his heart, to be lowered onto his bed. He kept his eyes closed as Kakashi smoothed the covers over him. Good night, Naruto, Kakashi said softly, with an amused lilt to his voice. A giggle finally escaped Naruto, and he opened his eyes in time to see Kakashi close the door behind him. Naruto yawned, and listened for the voices of his dad and Kakashi. Eventually he heard them talking down in the kitchen. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but it was nice to be able to hear them both. His dad always sounded much more cheerful whenever Kakashi was around. He blinked tiredly when the door to his bedroom opened after a few minutes, and his dad snuck in. Why aren't you asleep yet? His dad whispered. Naruto shrugged and yawned widely. Dad? Naruto wriggled as his dad tucked the covers firmly around him. Do you love Kakashi? His dad's eyebrows rose a little, and he sat back onto his heels beside the bed. Of course I do, he replied before he leant over to place a kiss atop Naruto's forehead. Not as much as I love you though. Naruto beamed at the attention. Then why can't Kakashi come and live with us? His dad sighed heavily and smiled, but he looked a little sad. Kakashi has his own home, Naruto, he replied. So? Naruto yawned. His eyes fluttered closed. Don't you want him to live with us? But if his dad had an answer, Naruto was asleep before he could give it. Oh, Zero. Kakashi stretched his arms over his head until he heard something pop loudly. He had spent the entire day hunched over a desk poring over scrolls for his ex-teacher, and even though such a task was far beneath his skills, he didn't really mind. That sounded painful. The Hokage winced as he strolled back into the kitchen. Felt kind of nice actually, Kakashi admitted as he peered into the cup of green tea on the table in front of him. He liked being in his sensei's house. It made him feel like he had a home to return to. Not just a drab little apartment and a potted plant. It wasn't actually his home though, and he was more than aware that he had a tendency to outstay his welcome whenever he came to visit. Not that the Hokage would ever say anything, like now for instance, when it was obvious that the man was tired after a long day, and he would want to read over the scrolls Kakashi had found for him before he went to bed. But Kakashi was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea and was loath to leave. You should take better care of yourself, Kakashi-kun. The Hokage chastised him as he wandered around the table to cast fleeting glances at the scrolls resting there. You creak like an old man sometimes. You're one to talk, Kakashi taunted. He could see his sensei frowning at the scrolls, and he knew that that was his cue to leave and let the man work in peace. But he really didn't want to. The Hokage's house was warm and colorful, and there were little pieces of Naruto dotted all over the place, from the pictures on the fridge to the bright orange clothes neatly folded on the chair, and the scribbles on the wall that Kakashi knew Naruto had gotten into heaps of trouble over. Are you trying to say that I'm past it? The Hokage pouted at him, and Kakashi chuckled. Brat, the Hokage sniffed. At least my hair hasn't gone gray yet. Hey, Kakashi narrowed his eyes. I was born this way. I know, and what a tragedy that is. The Hokage placed his hand over his heart and sighed. Your evil sensei, Kakashi informed him as he rolled his shoulders and tapped the side of his teacup. He really should leave. The Hokage would never come out and tell him to go, so it was up to Kakashi to take the initiative. But his sensei and Naruto were the only real family that he had, and he despised the fact that he had to steal time with them whenever he could. He always felt as though he was intruding, like he was tainting their perfect little family by just hanging around like some lost puppy. What am I going to do with you? The Hokage sighed in exasperation. Kakashi blinked in surprise when he felt his teacher's hands drop onto his shoulders. He hadn't even noticed the man move around the table. He groaned loudly when the Hokage began to knead the tension out of his shoulders, and then blushed hotly when the sound he had made registered in his mind. But he couldn't hold on to his embarrassment with his teacher's hands unknotting his neck. He wanted to melt into a puddle right there on the kitchen floor. It felt like his bones had turned to mush. Kakashi, the Hokage cried softly, you're as tense as piano wire. Meh. Kakashi let his head drop forwards and his eyes fall shut. Unlike some people, I actually work for a living. The Hokage cuffed him over the ear before he went back to the massage. Cheeky brat. Kakashi chuckled softly and sighed. He hadn't realized how tense his shoulders had been until his ex-teacher had taken it upon himself to smooth out the knots there. He just wanted to flop over the table and fall asleep under the Hokage's hands. But something else woke up inside him when his sensei began to rub small circles into his neck, and a blush settled into his face due to something entirely different from embarrassment. He shivered despite himself. There was a lazy sort of excitement skipping for joy in his stomach. He really needed to leave now, because it wasn't right to let the man touch him like that when he had no idea what it did to Kakashi. Are you cold? The Hokage asked suddenly, and Kakashi could hear the frown in his voice. Huh? Kakashi swallowed thickly. You shivered, the Hokage said. You aren't getting sick, are you? You've been eating properly, right? Kakashi smiled at the man's concern and at his own stupid fantasies. I'm fine, sensei, he replied. But The Hokage's hands fell away from his neck when he straightened himself to his feet. I should get going. He pushed the chair under the table and tried to will the flush out of his face before he turned around to face his teacher. The Hokage frowned at him. You haven't finished your tea. Kakashi pulled his mask back up and smiled at the man. He hoped that with the mask covering his face the Hokage wouldn't see how strained his smile was. Sorry, he replied, but I'm kind of tired. The Hokage nodded suddenly. Oh, of course, you should go and get some rest then. You really do need to start taking better care of yourself, Kakashi-kun. I am taking care of myself, sensei, Kakashi replied as he moved towards the hallway. The Hokage hummed in disbelief as he followed Kakashi towards the door and watched him slip his shoes back on. You'll end up turning me just as gray as you are. Yeah, but the color won't suit you as much as it does me. Kakashi smiled as he pulled the door open. The Hokage grinned. No, I don't suppose it will. Kakashi paused in the doorway. He didn't want to go out into the cold and return to his lonely little apartment. But he had no right to stay there. Goodbye, sensei. Good night, Kakashi. Oh, Zero-u. Naruto twisted himself around on the swing and grinned over to Sakura. The pink-haired girl scowled at him and turned away, flicking her hair. Would you like a rice ball, Naruto? Chuji asked, holding out his hand to offer Naruto the triangular-shaped treat. My mum made them. Naruto grinned and took the gift, studying the plum that was sitting in the middle. Chuji, Naruto called before the boy could turn away. What's it like? Having a mum? Chuji looked confused for a moment. His eyebrows furrowed in thought. I don't know, he admitted. I've never not had a mum, so I can't say. It's troublesome, came a drawling voice from the other side of the tree. They nag all the time, and make you tidy your room. Yeah, but my dad makes me tidy my room, Naruto pondered. They cook for you, Chuji tried, and help you with your homework. My dad does that too, Naruto replied pitifully. Well, if your dad does all that stuff, Shikamaru strolled around the tree. What does it matter? Naruto shrugged and tried to shove the entire rice ball into his mouth in one go. Your dad can't be your mum at the same time, Chuji said. But I don't have a mum, Naruto mumbled around his mouthful. I just have my dad and Kakashi. Yeah, but Kakashi's not your family. Shikamaru sighed as he sank down to the ground to lean against the tree in the shade. Yes, he is. Naruto cried heatedly. He looks after me when my dad's busy. Then he's your babysitter, Shikamaru replied. He plays with me and stuff, Naruto continued, and he brings me things back from his missions, and he reads me stories and buys me ramen when I'm upset, and he gives me medicine when I get sick and yells at people who are mean to me, and all kinds of stuff. Shikamaru was giving him a strange look. Naruto fidgeted uncomfortably and frowned at the ground. What are you idiots doing over here? Sasuke moved gracefully into the shade of the tree and smirked at Naruto. Naruto was telling us about how Kakashi is his mum, Shikamaru replied. What? Naruto squawked. No, I wasn't. Kakashi can't be my mum. He's a guy. So? Sasuke asked. Naruto goggled at him. Yeah, why can't Kakashi be your mum, Naruto? Chuji smiled. My cousin doesn't have a dad, but she kind of has two mums, so isn't it sort of the same thing? Yeah, but Naruto chewed his lip and looked back at the ground. Even if he was sort of like a mum, he doesn't live with us or anything. And he and my dad aren't, aren't mums and dads supposed to kiss and stuff? My parents don't, Sasuke frowned. I can see what he means though, Shikamaru mused. You want your dad and Kakashi to be like a real couple? Naruto went rigid. That wasn't what he had been saying. He couldn't imagine his dad and Kakashi being all kissy and stuff. That was just yuck. But then he couldn't imagine his dad being kissy with anyone, in fact. Just thinking about his dad doing that sort of stuff with anyone other than Kakashi made something hard and cold settle in the pit of his stomach. What if I did? He asked Shikamaru suspiciously. Then you have to get them together, Shikamaru replied as he slouched further against the tree. If they were a real couple, then Kakashi would move in with you and your dad. He would? Naruto asked, eyes wide. Chuji nodded. Yeah, that's what adults do when they fall in love. But my dad already loves Kakashi. Naruto frowned. He told me. Shikamaru frowned over at him. TSK, grown-ups, they're more trouble than they're worth. Then why doesn't he tell Kakashi? Chuji asked. I don't know, Naruto admitted. What should I do? I want Kakashi to come and live with us. But all my dad says is that he has his own home. You just need to get them to go on a date or something, Chuji replied. Naruto looked up. A date? What for? That's what couples do before they move in together, Shikamaru explained. Everyone's parents will have been on dates before they started living together and had kids. Chuji was nodding, and Sasuke was tilting his head in a way that meant I agree. But I'm not admitting to it. Naruto scratched the back of his head absently. So, he began, what sort of things do people do for dates? Chuji beamed, don't worry Naruto, I'll help. Minato rotated his wrist and winced at the cracking noises that his bones made. He could no longer feel his fingers. After signing his name for the 100 millionth time, the words Namikaze Minato no longer held any meaning for him. No one had told him that being the Hokage could be so boring. He glanced at the clock yet again and frowned. That clock had it in for him. He was sure it would taunt him with its ticking. But when he looked up, only 10 seconds would have passed. He dropped the pen onto the desk and propped his chin up on his hand. Kakashi should have been back by now. He had only sent him on a simple courier mission. A shinobi of Kakashi's level could do the mission blindfolded and with his ankles tied together. Wrong image. His back went rigid when his mind conjured up the image of Kakashi tied up and blindfolded somewhere dark and far away. It had only been a simple courier mission. But complications happened all the time. Kakashi had made quite a name for himself. He was famous, and his head would be worth a veritable fortune on the black market. He could have been attacked by rogue ninja or bounty hunters, or hunted down by some enemy that he had made over the years, or kidnapped or Hokage-sama? Inoichi rapped lightly on the slightly open door and peered inside. Kakashi-san has what? Minato yelped, on his feet suddenly. Inoichi blinked in surprise. He's just returned. He's just out here if you'd like to. Send him in. Minato breathed as he collapsed back into his chair. He was going senile. That was what it was. He was going to bypass the gray hair and scoot straight to dementia. Entirely Kakashi's fault though. Yo, Kakashi greeted him as he kicked the door shut behind him, hands firmly in his pockets and his hair looking even more windswept than usual. Minato couldn't help but smile across the desk at him. The sight of Kakashi always made him want to smile. He couldn't help it. No matter how annoyed or tired or down he felt, Kakashi could lift him back up again with just a lazy greeting and the curve of his eye. And the brat had no idea. He had no inkling of how proud Minato was of him. No matter how often Minato told him, Kakashi had grown up into a wonderful young man. And Minato preened whenever he recalled that he had rather a large part to play in that. Or at least, he liked to think he had. You're late, Minato informed him. Ma, Kakashi raised his arm and scratched the back of his head. You see, there was this little girl who'd gotten lost in the woods while searching for her kitten and... Minato shook his head in wry amusement. His day had suddenly brightened up. Kakashi didn't seem to realize just how much Minato enjoyed spending time with him, but it was probably for the best. Kakashi had his own life, his own friends, he deserved his independence. Minato didn't want to take any of that away from him, but he still waited for Kakashi to drop by every day. He would always make enough tea for 2 people on the off chance that Kakashi would come over. Even though he knew he was being a fool, he always felt slightly disappointed when half of the tea went untouched. There used to be a time when Kakashi followed him everywhere. He couldn't shake the kid no matter how hard he tried. No one had warned him how much he would miss the constant presence at his back. Like a second shadow, once that shadow grew up and they grew apart. Hey, Minato smiled happily. Naruto asked me to invite you over for dinner tonight. I think he's planning to cook. Tonight? Kakashi asked. Minato schooled his features not to fall. He kept smiling even as he realized that Kakashi would probably have plans. Plans that didn't involve his old teacher, a little boy, and the charcoal that Naruto would no doubt serve them for dinner. Don't worry if you have plans, he said. It was just a suggestion. No, I don't have plans, Kakashi replied. I'd love to come. Minato beamed. Great. Oh, Zero. Naruto pulled the door open and grinned at Chuji and Shikamaru. Quick, come in. Naruto ushered them inside and bit his lips nervously as Chuji attempted to kick his shoes off while holding a massive bowl and a large covered platter. My mum made it all, he enthused as Naruto helped him maneuver into the kitchen. She wouldn't let me cook anything when she found out that it was for the Hokage. As though the mere mention of him had summoned him, Naruto's dad stuck his head around the doorway and grinned at them. What's for dinner? Naruto pouted. You can't look, he cried. It's a surprise. Go away. His dad's eyebrows rose. I'm not leaving you lot alone in the kitchen. It's alright, Hokage-sama. Chuji bowed. I make things in our kitchen all the time. Naruto's dad pursed his lips. Well, just don't touch the knives, or the oven, or anything at all without me here. Fine, fine. Naruto shooed him away. We're just going to put the stuff on plates. Go get Kakashi. His dad chuckled as he was dismissed from the kitchen. He'll be here in a few minutes. Don't panic. A few minutes? Naruto squawked. But Chuji, it's alright Naruto, Chuji assured him as his dad disappeared into the next room. Everything's all ready. We heated it up before bringing it over so we just need bowls. What is it anyway? Naruto asked as he dived into the cupboard for the plates and dishes. Teriyaki chicken and dumplings and ramen and… Naruto pulled his head back out of the cupboard. Ramen? Shikamaru rolled his eyes and pushed past Naruto to get the bowls. What kind? Naruto jumped up and peered into the bowl of steaming ramen that Chuji had brought with him. Vegetable, Chuji beamed. Naruto was almost drooling. He could just reach over for some chopsticks and tuck in. But the food wasn't for him. It was for his dad and Kakashi. Kakashi prefers miso ramen. Naruto bit his lip. He wanted everything to be perfect, or eel. We could put some eel in it, Chuji suggested. We didn't bring any, Shikamaru said as he placed the bowls on the kitchen counter. Naruto grinned and skidded towards the fridge. We have eel. Oh, Zero-u. Minato dropped the scroll he had just rolled up when he heard Naruto's ear-piercing screech. But the only people he could sense in the house were Naruto, Chuji, Shikamaru, and now Kakashi, who had let himself in moments ago. He smiled to himself and picked the scroll up from the floor. Apparently, I'm not allowed in the kitchen. Kakashi's voice floated into the study from the doorway. Minato tossed the scroll to the top of the bookcase and turned towards Kakashi. Don't take it personally. I've been evicted from the kitchen too. It smells wonderful, Kakashi mused, glancing back over his shoulder. Whatever it is. Minato nodded. The aromas wafting in from the kitchen did smell lovely. But then, Chuji had brought the food, and everyone in the village knew that the Akimichi clan were gods in the kitchen. Are Chuji and Shikamaru staying for dinner? Kakashi asked as he wandered aimlessly into the room and hopped up to sit on the desk. I don't know, Minato frowned as he stuffed more scrolls into his swelling bookcase. I don't think so. I'm sure Naruto would have asked if they could come over for dinner if that were the case. When he turned back towards the desk, Kakashi was swinging his legs and his mask was pulled beneath his chin. He was staring at the pictures on the walls, mainly Naruto's handiwork. The sight made Minato smile with a pang of nostalgia. He doubted he had ever seen Kakashi swing his legs when he was a child. He also doubted that Kakashi had ever drawn such messy scribbles when he was a little boy either. When he was Naruto's age, he was already drawing up mission plans and schematics. It made Minato painfully sad to think that his expression was far more youthful now than it had been when he was small. He had the sudden urge to draw Kakashi into a hug. But it was nothing more than an indulgent desire, and Kakashi had never been particularly touchy-feely. He would probably be horrified if Minato tried it. What? Minato was shaken from his thoughts when Kakashi spoke. He had been staring and Kakashi was looking at him in curiosity. One eyebrow raised. Do I have something on my face or something? Minato shook his head and looked away. Sorry, I was just thinking. What about? Minato walked around the table and pulled himself up to sit next to Kakashi. About what a cute kid you were, Minato grinned. Kakashi scowled. I wasn't cute. Minato laughed. You were adorable, Kakashi-kun. You're teasing me, Kakashi pouted. I'm being serious. Dad. Kakashi. Where are you? Minato rubbed his hands together and hopped off the desk. Thank the heavens. I'm starving. I'm not a kid anymore, you know, Kakashi said quietly. Minato turned back to Kakashi and frowned in concern. I know that. Kakashi sighed and slid off the edge of the desk. Do you? Minato's frown deepened. He could see a silent challenge written into Kakashi's face. But there was a sort of hope in his uncovered eye too, and Minato didn't know what to make of it. There you are. Naruto barreled into the room. Come on. The food's ready. Come on. Oh, Zero-u. Naruto bounced on the spot when his dad and Kakashi stared at the table. Naruto had never felt more proud of himself. He had set the ramen right in the middle, since that was the best part of the meal, and his dad and Kakashi were looking at it like they were starving men in for a feast. Wow, Naruto, Kakashi breathed, and Naruto puffed his chest out and beamed. This was a real date, with real food, and his dad could tell Kakashi that he loved him and then Kakashi could come and live with them. He carried on bouncing. Sit down. He took his dad's hand and tugged him towards the nearest chair. His dad chuckled and ruffled his hair. I'm impressed. Naruto ducked past him and pulled Kakashi to the chair opposite his dad. Shikamaru had said that they were supposed to sit opposite each other. Naruto wasn't really sure if he was meant to stay or not, but the food looked delicious, and he had to make sure that everything went all right. He couldn't leave it to his dad and Kakashi because they would just mess it all up. He jumped into the chair at the end of the table and poked Kakashi in the arm. Eat the ramen first. I helped make it. Which was true, he had put the eel in. Kakashi smiled at him as he lifted his bowl up to help himself, and Naruto stretched across for some teriyaki chicken. He wanted the ramen too, but he'd let Kakashi and his dad eat some first. It was their date after all. This is really good. His dad slurred around a mouthful chicken. You sound surprised, Kakashi remarked. I always knew Naruto would be a good cook. Oh really? Well, I guess he takes after me then. Kakashi snorted in amusement, and Naruto's dad narrowed his eyes at him. You trying to say I can't cook? He pouted. Kakashi shook his head. I'm not trying to say anything, he said. I'm telling you, you can't cook. Naruto was moving through the teriyaki at breakneck speed, only listening to the conversation with half an ear, when a sudden silence made him pause in his chewing and look up. Are you all right? His dad asked, frowning at Kakashi. Kakashi placed a hand over his mouth and shook his head slowly. Naruto hastily swallowed his mouthful and leant closer to Kakashi. It looked like he was turning green. His dad put his chopsticks down. Do you need to? Kakashi was up and out of the room before he could finish his sentence. Naruto's stomach dropped. His dad looked at him seriously. Naruto, what was in the ramen? Vegetables and eel, he replied in a small voice. His dad frowned, and looked towards the doorway that led to the kitchen. Naruto, please tell me you didn't use the eel from the fridge. Naruto swallowed hard. He cringed on the inside when he heard Kakashi throw up in the bathroom. He nodded unhappily, and felt very close to tears when his dad leapt up from his seat and vanished into the hallway after Kakashi. Naruto slowly slid out of his chair and hovered in the dining room as Kakashi continued to be sick. He was starting to feel a little ill himself, but it had nothing to do with the food. He had made Kakashi throw up. It was all his fault. The date was ruined and Kakashi wasn't well. He bit his lip and shifted from one foot to the other nervously. Not knowing what to do, he wanted to burst into tears. But he just sniffled softly and picked up the bowl of ramen so that he could throw it away before it made anyone else sick. He tiptoed up the stairs when he had dumped the ramen in the bin, and crept towards the bathroom doorway so that he could peer around the edge of the doorframe. Kakashi was bent over the toilet bowl. Naruto's dad was kneeling next to him, and combing his hair back from his face. He looked up as Naruto poked his head around the doorway and smiled kindly. Don't worry, Naruto, his dad said softly. It was my fault. I should have thrown the eel away ages ago. Right on cue. Kakashi heaved again. Naruto's dad grimaced and started rubbing circles into his back. Is he going to be okay? Naruto stammered. Kakashi wiped his mouth and looked over his shoulder. I'm fine, Naruto. He gave Naruto a wobbly smile. He looked exceedingly pale, paler than usual. But I think maybe I should go home. Naruto's dad shook his head. No, you can stay here for the night. I'll make the spare bed. Kakashi opened his mouth to reply, when his face fell suddenly and he dived back over the toilet bowl to throw up some more. Naruto shuffled away from the door. I'm just going to put myself to bed, he whispered. His dad looked back towards him and smiled again. I'll come and tuck you in a minute, okay? Naruto nodded and then ran down the hallway, diving into his room and burying himself under the covers of his bed, not even bothering to get changed into his pajamas first. He sniffed loudly as he pressed his face into the pillow. He had wrecked everything. All he had wanted was for Kakashi to come and live with them, and he had made him sick instead. He had never felt so guilty about anything before. He curled up into a ball and vowed that he would make it up to Kakashi somehow. Oh, Zero-u. Minato winced when Kakashi retched again. Minato tugged the Hittite from Kakashi's head and smoothed his hair back from his face. His skin had turned gray and clammy and Minato wanted nothing more than to wrap him up and hold him. Ugh, Kakashi spat. Is Naruto alright? Minato smiled. He didn't eat any of the ramen. That wasn't what I meant, Kakashi replied. I know, Minato admitted as he ran his fingers through Kakashi's hair. His heart expanded in his chest when he thought of how awful Kakashi looked and how he was thinking of Naruto instead of himself. Would you like some water? He asked. Kakashi turned his head to look at him. The Sharingan was spinning sluggishly and both of his eyes were wet. That would be nice, Kakashi choked out. Wait here. Minato pushed himself to his feet. I'll be right back. Not going any. Minato bit his lip when Kakashi vomited into the toilet bowl again, and he was in the kitchen in a flash, pouring water into a glass and rushing back up the stairs before Kakashi had finished spilling the contents of his stomach into the toilet. Here you go. Minato sat down beside Kakashi and held the glass out. Are you feeling any better? Kakashi took the glass and sipped gingerly before he took a deep breath and sagged against the toilet. Yeah, peachy. Minato smirked. Brat. He couldn't be feeling so terrible if he was being sarcastic. You should go and check on Naruto. Kakashi sighed as he closed his eyes, placing the glass on the floor near his knee. Minato nodded. In a minute. I want to make sure you aren't about to drop dead on me. Kakashi chuckled pitifully, eyes still closed. Don't be silly, sensei. Minato reached behind him for a towel and wiped the tears away from Kakashi's cheek. He should have thrown that eel away. There was stuff in his fridge that was ready to claim sentience and form its own government. He ached in sympathy as he wiped the towel over Kakashi's forehead. I'm sorry, he said softly. I should have made sure that the food was edible. Kakashi blinked, two bleary eyes open. It's fine, I've lived through worse. Minato smiled sadly and put the towel down. I'm going to go and see to Naruto. Will you be okay by yourself for a little while? Kakashi didn't respond. He merely waved Minato away and closed his eyes again, as though he was going to go to sleep. Leaning over the toilet bowl, Minato's knees cracked as he stood up, and he glanced back over his shoulder at Kakashi before he hurried into the hallway. He picked up the pace when he heard soft sniffling coming from Naruto's room. When he opened the door, all he could see was a lump under the covers, shaking slightly and sniffling into the pillow. Naruto? He called as he crossed the room and sat down on the side of the bed. Hey, come on, what are you crying for? He rubbed what he assumed was Naruto's back through the bright orange covers and frowned when Naruto just sniffed harder. There was nothing worse than listening to his little boy cry. He would rip out hearts to stop Naruto from crying. I am made Kakashi sick, Naruto sobbed. Minato leant over and wrapped himself around the lump under the covers. It wasn't your fault, he soothed. It was my fault. How were you meant to know that the eel was bad? It's my job to get rid of the out-of-date stuff in the fridge. Naruto continued to sniff. Is he okay? Minato tightened his arms around the lump and smiled. He's fine, he just needs to go to bed and sleep. He'll be as bright as a button in the morning. The orange lump wriggled, and Minato tried pulling the covers down a little so that he could look into Naruto's tear-streaked face. I'm sorry, Naruto said. You don't have to be sorry, Minato replied as he kissed Naruto on the tip of his nose. What you did was really nice. The food looked amazing. Kakashi and I were really impressed. But I poisoned him. Naruto wailed. He's not poisoned. Minato pulled the covers away and wiped Naruto's cheeks. He's just a bit ill. Does Kakashi hate me now? Naruto asked, with wide, desperate eyes that hurt to look at. Of course not, Minato told him. Kakashi could never hate you. He loves you to pieces. Naruto sat up and rubbed his eyes. Can I go and say sorry? Minato listened to the faint sound of Kakashi heaving again and winced. Not right now, eh? Let's get you changed into your pajamas and tucked in. And then I can do the same with Kakashi so that he can get some sleep, yeah? Naruto nodded, still sniffing occasionally as Minato fetched his pajamas from where they were scattered on the floor. He tugged Naruto out of his clothes and pulled his arms through his pajama top. I still can't find the G-gray crayon. Naruto pouted as Minato pulled his pajama bottoms the right way out. Huh! Minato held the pajama bottoms out to Naruto. The what? The gray crayon. Naruto cried unhappily. I can't finish the picture without it. Okay. Minato placated him before the tears could start falling again. I'll get you a new one, alright? Naruto pouted and pulled on his pajama bottoms. But it has to be exactly the right color, he said, like the last one was. I'll find you 100 gray crayons that are exactly the right color, Minato promised. Now give me a smile. Naruto sniffed one last time, and then gave Minato a small watery smile. Minato couldn't help himself. He grabbed the boy and smushed him into a hug, kissing every hair on his head that he could get to. Nuff, Dad! Naruto wailed as he tried to wriggle out of his dad's hold. Let go. Minato chuckled and let him go, ushering him into bed and folding the covers snugly around him. No more crying, he said, okay? Naruto nodded from the cocoon Minato had made for him. Good. He kissed Naruto's forehead and grinned. Go to sleep. Naruto wriggled into a more comfortable position. Night. Minato crept out of the room and slid the doors shut. One down, one more to go. He shot into the spare room and made the bed in a fraction of a second. Nothing but a yellow blur in the sparse room. And then he dashed to his own room and for something for Kakashi to sleep in. When he walked back into the bathroom, a spare t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants held loosely in his hand, Kakashi was asleep over the toilet bowl. I knew it, he sighed fondly as he leant over Kakashi. Kakashi made a sleepy little noise that was far too cute to be legal when Minato gently shook his shoulder. Come on, Minato whispered, time for bed. He held onto Kakashi's arm as he stood up, and led him carefully down the hallway and into the spare room. I'm fine, Kakashi rasped. Stop babying me, sensei. Put these on. Minato dropped the spare clothes onto the bed and carefully pushed Kakashi down into a sitting position beside them. How do you feel? I'm fine, Kakashi replied, but his skin looked too clammy for him to feel fine, and his voice sounded awful. Minato's heart clenched. I'll go get your water, he said. Are you going to be sick again? Because I can find you something to be sick into if you... I'm fine, Kakashi sighed as he rubbed his eyes sleepily. Minato nodded and headed back into a hallway. He was feeling slightly exhausted himself, but he was smiling as he retrieved the glass of water and moved back down the hallway, past Naruto's room, then his own room, and finally to Kakashi. Despite all of the excitement, he felt surprisingly content. Could have been the fact that he had his entire family under the same roof. It was a pity about the circumstances. He froze in the doorway as Kakashi tugged his shirt over his head. He only remembered that he had a glass of water in his hand when he nearly dropped it. Kakashi's skin was creamy white, with patterns of silver where his scars danced over him. He looked like he had been sculpted out of marble, and he wondered why Kakashi would ever think that Minato still thought of him as a kid, because the creature before him was definitely not a child. Minato's mouth went rather dry when Kakashi lifted up the t-shirt and pulled it over his head. The muscles of his abdomen stretched taut when he raised his arms to slip the t-shirt over him, and then that expanse of pale skin was covered beneath faded fabric. Here, Minato cleared his throat and strode towards the bedside table. I'll put the glass here, okay? Was the only sound Kakashi made in response. Right, Minato turned around and his heart almost gave out. Kakashi was on his feet and was carefully pushing his pants over his hips. I'll just leave so that you can good night, Kakashi. Minato had never moved so fast in his life, and that was saying something. His heart was hammering wildly against his ribcage, and he felt mildly disgusted with himself. He had absolutely no right to look at Kakashi like that. He couldn't even begin to imagine how Kakashi would feel if he knew. Minato shook himself and closed the door to his bedroom. He wouldn't look at Kakashi like that anymore. He wouldn't let himself. But how many times had he told himself exactly the same thing in the past? Oh, Zero. Kakashi didn't know what had woken him. There had been some noise somewhere, but he was feeling far too sluggish to concentrate on it. He was feeling remarkably better, but he could still taste bile in the back of his throat, and the muscles of his stomach ached. But he could smell his teacher everywhere. With each breath the man was there, and it was incredibly soothing. It took a moment for Kakashi to realize that it was his clothes. He was dressed in one of his sensei's old t-shirts, and it smelled just like him. He sighed deeply and burrowed further into the covers, smiling. He sprang into a sitting position, far more alert, when the door opened, but he relaxed when his eyes adjusted to the figure cowering in the doorway. Shouldn't you be asleep? He asked around a yawn. Naruto shuffled hesitantly into the room. Are you feeling better? Kakashi smiled. Much. Are you okay? Naruto nodded and crept closer. I'm really sorry about the ramen. It wasn't your fault. Kakashi ran his hand absently over his stomach. I blame your dad. He's always trying to poison me with moldy food. He is? Naruto's eyes went wide. Kakashi nodded. When I was younger he used to experiment on me with all kinds of dishes, he chuckled. I was throwing up every other week. Naruto giggled nervously. Come over here. Kakashi beckoned and pulled the covers back for Naruto to clamber in. I only wanted to do something nice, Naruto said softly as he squirmed his way closer to Kakashi. It was nice, Kakashi replied as he rearranged the covers over them. But it made you sick, Naruto complained. I'm not sick anymore though, Kakashi assured him as he settled down next to the snuggling blonde. Next time, I won't use eel, Naruto promised. Kakashi chuckled as Naruto grabbed his t-shirt and wormed his way closer. Next time, tell your dad to clear out the fridge first. Naruto nodded against Kakashi's chest. The boy was like a ball of heat settled next to him, and Kakashi petted his hair for a moment before he sighed in contentment and draped his arm over Naruto. He was glad he hadn't gone back to his apartment. He much preferred sleeping in his teacher's house, with those who were important to him just down the hallway, and he couldn't even describe what it felt like to have Naruto clinging to him as he fell asleep. He just knew that it would be that much more difficult to go home to an empty apartment in the morning. Hey, Shikamaru waved when he strolled over to where Naruto was sulking under the picnic table. So how did the date go? I poisoned Kakashi, Naruto wailed. Shikamaru's eyes went wide, and then Naruto knew that he had done something terrible because he had never seen Shikamaru look anything other than bored. Wow, the boy said, you blew it then? It wasn't my fault. Naruto cried. Aren't you going to try again? Shikamaru asked as he plopped himself down next to Naruto. Naruto shook his head. No, scaredy cat. Naruto growled and poked his head out from beneath the table so that he could glare up at Sasuke, who was lounging on the top of it. Shut up. You won't try again because you're scared, Sasuke said simply. It's alright for you to say that. Naruto yelled. Your parents already live together and everything. Moron. Sasuke twisted and jumped down from on top of the table. Just try again. And what am I supposed to do next? Huh? Naruto demanded to know. What are you yelling at Sasuke-kun for, Naruto? Sakura bellowed as she marched towards them. Naruto scowled at Sasuke and returned to hiding beneath the picnic table. Naruto set up his dad and Kakashi on a date. Shikamaru informed Sakura and Ino when they came to a halt on either side of Sasuke. Huh? Sakura was momentarily shaken from her adoration of Sasuke with the mention of romance. Date? What are you talking about? The idiot poisoned his mom, Sasuke smirked. He's not my mom. He wants his dad and Kakashi to get together, Shikamaru said, but the date he set them up on didn't work out well. What kind of date did you send them on? Ino asked, stepping away from Sasuke to peer at Naruto under the table. Chuji and Shikamaru and me made them food, he pouted, and it made Kakashi sick. Figures. Ino placed her hands on her hips. If you want to know about romance, you don't go to Chuji and Shikamaru. Naruto frowned up at her. Well, what would you do then? Ino's grin became slightly frightening. You really want to know? Oh, Zero. Kakashi appeared in his apartment in a swirl of leaves, and went very, very still. What the? He took a single step forward and then froze. He sneezed inside his mask, loudly. Oh, yuck, he whined right before he sneezed again. It was then that he peered at the countless flowers camouflaging his apartment more carefully. Oh no, he hissed. Orchids. A lot of orchids, 1 or 2 he could handle. But an entire room full. Even with the mask he could feel his throat constricting. His eyes were watering like there was no tomorrow and itching terribly. But he knew that if he rubbed them that they just sting even worse. He pressed forward, searching for the door, when he knocked over one of the mammoth bouquets, and the angry sound of buzzing filled the air. Ow! He blinked down at his arm, but he couldn't see anything through the water in his eyes. After another sneeze he screwed his eyes shut, held his breath, and vanished in a swirl of smoke. He managed to stagger into the Hokage's house despite the sneezing and the fact that he couldn't see. He spared a self-deprecating moment to wonder why he always seemed to run to his teacher whenever something like this happened. He should really try letting go of the man. The Hokage didn't owe him anything. He probably thought of Kakashi as a nuisance, but he couldn't think of anywhere else to go. He was technically blinded, and he didn't want to sit on the roof of his apartment to wait for the allergic reaction to subside. Kakashi? He heard the man call out. What on earth? What happened to you? Orchids? Kakashi yanked his mask down and sneezed again. Do you have any tissues? There was incredulous silence for a moment, before he heard the Hokage move around and then press something soft into his hand. He sneezed into the tissue, relieved by the fact that the urge to sneeze was becoming less insistent now. Come on. There was a firm hand on his shoulder, guiding him further into the house, and Kakashi suddenly felt embarrassed about the state he was in. What happened? The Hokage asked as Kakashi was maneuvered onto the couch. You said something about orchids? Kakashi blinked and wiped his eyes. My apartment is full of them. Why? His sensei asked. You're allergic to them. I know that, Kakashi snapped irritably. I don't know who left them, but there were hundreds, and a bee. Huh? The Hokage frowned. Kakashi held his arm out and indicated the large red lump that was swelling on his forearm. Oh, the Hokage chuckled. Are you laughing at me? Kakashi pouted. Wait here. His teacher sighed. Kakashi snatched up some more tissues from the box that the Hokage had left on the couch next to him, and wiped his eyes angrily. He was even angrier with the way he was behaving. Like a petulant child who expected his teacher to fix everything, he didn't even know what he was doing in the man's house. He was being childish. Right, the Hokage said determinedly as he strode back in, holding some cotton wool and a bottle of something that smelled like vinegar. Give me your arm. Kakashi watched as the man perched himself on the coffee table in front of him, and gently took his wrist into his hand. He pushed the sleeve of Kakashi's top further up his arm to get a better look at the vivid red swelling there, and winced in sympathy. "Who on earth would fill your apartment with orchids?" he asked. "I don't know," Kakashi replied, and then sneezed again. "Someone who doesn't like me much." If Kakashi didn't know better, he would say that the Hokage looked upset about something. But he was blinking at him through bleary eyes, and after a moment the expression faded to a cheerful smile. "Maybe you have a secret admirer," he teased. "Shut up, sensei." The Hokage chuckled and held Kakashi's hand loosely in his own, while he pressed the cotton wool to Kakashi's arm. It had been soaked in vinegar and Kakashi hissed when it first touched his skin. "Sensei," Kakashi said softly, "I'm sorry for bothering you with this." The Hokage looked up from Kakashi's arm and goggled at him. "Sorry? You don't have to be sorry, Kakashi-kun. When you were a kid you would have suffered by yourself. I'm glad that you can come to me with stuff like this now." Kakashi frowned. He wasn't a child anymore, but his teacher would always look back upon the time when he was, and no matter what he did he would never be able to make the man look at him as anything other than Kakashi-kun, the little boy he used to teach. It was frustrating beyond belief. He just wanted to kick the man and make him see him. He jumped slightly when the Hokage ran his thumb lightly over Kakashi's knuckles, holding his hand almost tenderly while he pressed the cotton wool against his arm. Kakashi stared at their hands and just longed for a moment, before he squeezed his teacher's hand gently. The Hokage looked up into his face and squeezed back, with a smile that almost seemed sad. "Oh, Zero, Dad!" Naruto called when he swung into his house and kicked his shoes off. "Guess what? Sakura-chan played with me all day. She let me braid her hair, but I couldn't do it properly so she hit me, and Ino did it for her. But then we ate some dango and—" Naruto came to a halt in the doorway and frowned at the scene before him. Kakashi waved, a tissue held firmly in his hand. Naruto's dad was holding Kakashi's wrist gently, and dabbing something that smelled like vinegar onto his arm. "Kakashi, what's the matter?" Naruto asked in horror. His eyes were all red and puffy. He looked like he had been crying. He hadn't been crying, had he? Kakashi never cried. Who had made him cry? Naruto would pound them into the ground. He just had an allergic reaction, Naruto. His dad smiled at him over his shoulder. "A what?" Naruto asked as he clambered onto the couch beside Kakashi and watched in sympathy as his dad dabbed that vinegary stuff at a swollen red lump on Kakashi's forearm. "Someone left bunches of orchids in my apartment," Kakashi explained, his words muffled through the tissue. "There were loads of them, and in such a small space so even my mask didn't help." Naruto's lip had started to wobble. He bit it, and he got stung by a bee, his dad told him. It was hiding in one of the bouquets apparently. "Hurt like a bitch," Kakashi muttered. Naruto's dad whacked Kakashi upside the head. "Language," he warned, "and don't be a baby. You're a war-hardened shinobi. You've lived through far worse than a bee sting. Will you be okay?" Naruto asked. Something in his voice must have given him away. He was so incredibly close to tears he didn't know how he had managed to stop any from falling, and both his dad and Kakashi turned their full attention to him. "Hey, Naruto," his dad leant closer to him and rubbed his head gently. "What's the matter?" Naruto sniffed. He really didn't want to cry in front of his dad and Kakashi, but his dad was looking at him with so much concern, and Kakashi had wrapped his arm, the one with the bee sting, around his shoulders and was rubbing his arm affectionately. He couldn't do anything right. He had made Kakashi sick with the eel, and he had done it again with the flowers. Kakashi had forgiven him for the eel, but if he found out it was him who had sent the flowers then he probably wouldn't speak to him again. And he had said that the bee sting had really hurt and hurting Kakashi was the last thing he wanted to do. "Hey, I lied, you know," Kakashi confided. "It didn't hurt at all. I was just trying to get some sympathy out of you." Naruto couldn't hold his tears in any longer. He wrapped his arms tightly around Kakashi's neck and sniffled loudly against him. "Not this much sympathy though," Kakashi said in alarm. Naruto felt Kakashi wrap his arms around him and hug him tightly, and his dad climbed onto the couch next to him and kissed the back of his head. "Come on, kiddo," his dad soothed. "Tell us what the matter is." Naruto hiccuped. "Yuji got stung." Kakashi chuckled against the top of his head and hugged him tighter. Naruto wriggled further into Kakashi's arms, and even though he felt so utterly guilty, it felt really nice to have his dad and Kakashi shushing him softly and hugging him. "What are you going to do about your apartment?" Naruto heard his dad ask quietly when Naruto had finally quietened down. I'll ask Guy to get rid of the flowers for me, Kakashi replied, still rubbing Naruto's back. But I have no idea where they came from in the first place. His dad shifted slightly in his seat. Like I said, maybe you have a secret admirer. Naruto frowned at the tone of his dad's voice. He sounded like he was sulking slightly. He had never heard his dad sound like that before. Kakashi chuckled. Yeah, I wish. It was probably someone with a grudge against me. Who else would send me flowers that I'm allergic to? Naruto bit his lip in worry. Everything he did ended in disaster. He should just forget the whole thing. Oh, Zero, you stupid idiot! Ino screamed as she kicked out at Naruto. Why didn't you tell me that he was allergic to orchids? I didn't know! Naruto protested. It's not just my fault. There was a bee in those flowers and it stung him. Are you trying to blame me for this? Ino screeched. Sasuke was rolling his eyes and doing his best to ignore them, while Shikamaru dozed upon the grass and Chuji watched the entertainment, while munching on a bag of chips. I don't care anymore! Naruto yelled. I give in. So you're giving up this time? Sasuke sneered. I knew you were a scaredy cat. Shut up! Naruto pointed into the Uchiha's face and snarled. Everything I do ends up making Kakashi sick or something. I've tried everything. I'm not doing anything else. You haven't tried everything, Sasuke replied. Well, what else can I do? Naruto huffed and flopped angrily onto the grass. I can't think of anything else. That's because you're stupid, Sasuke said. Just lock them in a cupboard together or something. No, Naruto paused. Would that work? No, Shikamaru interrupted, earning himself a glare from Sasuke. You can't do that, your dad's the Hokage. You can't lock the Hokage up for any length of time. What if he's needed? Naruto folded his arms and stuck his tongue out at Sasuke. All of the heads in the area swiveled around to look at Kiba as he marched towards them. Naruto! The Inuzuka boy yelled. Is it true? Is your dad gay? Huh! Naruto climbed to his feet and glared at the other boy. What do you mean? Kiba stopped in front of him and shrugged, smiling. Nothing, I was just asking. Hinata said that he's going out with that old guy with the mask. Kakashi's not old. Naruto yelled. But is he going out with your dad? Kiba asked. Naruto huffed and dropped back onto the grass. We're working on it, Ino snapped. What does that mean? Kiba frowned. It means that Naruto wants Kakashi to be his mom, Chuji explained. Naruto pouted and glared at Chuji. He didn't want Kakashi to be his actual mom. He just wanted Kakashi to live with them so that they could be a proper family. But nothing is working, Shikamaru sighed. Naruto keeps screwing up, Sasuke smirked. Shut up! Naruto yelled as he crossed his arms over his chest. It's not my fault. Kiba gave them all a puzzled frown and crossed his arms. How can he be your mom? He's a man. Naruto narrowed his eyes angrily. I don't care. I just want him to go on a proper date with my dad so that he can move in with us. A sly grin spread slowly over Kiba's face. A date, huh? He dropped onto the grass beside Naruto and chuckled. In that case, I know exactly what you need.